Welcome to What's Your Story, where we, Jaime Marco,
and Stan Brown,
delve into the extraordinary lives of everyday people.
Listen in as we uncover the unique tales that shape who we are,
one story at a time.
Hey, let's get ready to explore today's story.
Let's do it.
You're a total redneck.
Hey, Dad.
Oh, hello. Good morning.
Hi.
How are you?
Hey, good. Well, it may be morning for us, but I don't know when someone's listening to this. So it could be good morning, good afternoon, good evening, But yes, it is morning, hence my appearance. So I wanted to share something interesting with you. So I was talking to somebody about the podcast, and they were saying, they were interested in doing their own podcast. And I said, well, how do you edit it? Like, who's producing it? How are you editing it? And I said, well, we're not editing it.
We're one take people.
But not only that, the whole point of it is to be unfiltered.
Sure.
So like I think I'm going to add that, like that's where that comes from. Like, what's your story unfiltered? Because that's what frustrates me so much, is that people are putting so many filters on their life.
It's called sanitizing.
Should we say unsanitized instead of unfiltered?
Then I would think we're doing it inside a men's room.
Gross. So you see, I'm in my workout clothes, strong today. Listener, if you're just listening, you can't see this, but I started a new routine, Dad, as you're aware. I started going to work out at 6 a.m. in the morning. And
interesting. I did that for years.
Well, and you would do it at home or you would go somewhere?
I would go to a Bath and Racket Club. I worked out with Jack Dow, the famous sculptor.
Ooh.
What scared me one day, I was having so much fun, feeling so good. And one of my new boss came to town and said, hey, you work out at all? I said, yeah. He says, can I come with you? I said, oh, okay. Disaster.
Oh my God.
That was me time. He wanted me time to be his time.
Oh my gosh. But it's funny, like it really, my friend, I go together with a friend and she's like, oh, by noon I'm taking a nap. And I'm like, dude, I'm energized all day long. Like it gives me, it's waking up. That's the tough part and getting there. But once I'm there, I feel so good.
The morning is a very special thing. I used to run every morning. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's meditative, kind of sets the entire day program, no question.
Well, yeah. And it's like, I just need that me, like you said, that me time. And the workout that we're doing is Pilates, and it's really just you're solo, and it's kind of like yoga. When you go to yoga class, you're there in a room of multiple people, but it's a solo sport, right? Like
it's also reestablishing a balance and equilibrium in your life. When you have raising a child, it's very consuming.
Yeah.
Or raising a grandparent for that matter. It's very consuming dealing with me. I can appreciate that.
But like raising a child, having your own business, being a wife, being a mom, all those things. So yeah, it's it's felt good.
I mean, how many days a week?
So it's hard, right? Because
even 2 is perfect.
Yeah, I'm trying to do 2 for sure, but based on my schedule, like I, make lunches and snack and everything in the morning, and then we leave for school. So I have to be back here at 7. So they have classes that are all like not every day at the same time. So I'm trying to do the 6 a.m. class, but then I'm also it's because it's so close, I can sneak away at lunch. So I'm trying to do 3 to 4 classes a week.
But you also see you'll be able to deal with you and your environment a lot better, in a bit better fashion, with more clarity, because you're more on there's kind of a balance out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just like a great way to start your day, and it's like I think, yeah, like it felt good, and the instructor, she's fascinating. Like one of the instructors today, I'm gonna try and see if I can get her on. But so her husband's a caddy, and he spends half the year in the Hamptons. And then half the year now they moved down here, being a caddy for people. And it's pretty fascinating. And I asked her today, I was like, in the Hamptons, I was like, oh, any celebrities? And she's like, all the time. So I was like, I'm a celebrity junkie.
He can't talk. There's a disclaimer. He can't talk about that.
She didn't tell me. She wouldn't tell me, but like, who? So
but she may be getting a big economic raise soon.
Why?
No tax on tips.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Maybe I'll also get into a job on tipping.
Assuming he's been declaring his tips all these years.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get him on. He's even better.
There you go. So our guest is here. We're going to hop in. I know her, you don't, and I don't really know her full story, but why don't we just hop in and welcome her, and we'll go from there. What do you think?
Let's do it. This is the best way to go. Jump in the deep end.
Here we go. And here she comes. Dun 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 dun. Dun dun dun
Come on.
dun.
Hello, Lindsay. Hello.
See, I don't know. It should be letting her in. There we go. There she is. Hold on. Can we see her yet? Can
Not
you
yet.
hear us, Lindsay?
I think it might, her
Oh,
mute is
there
my.
we go.
Hello, Lindsay. I think
Hi.
you're muted.
Us?
Hit
Oh, we
your
can't
audio.
hear you. We can't hear you. Let's see.
Okay, we good?
Good
Yes.
morning, Lindsay.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So I was just, we started off. So our guest today is Lindsay Milner. You'll get to know her just in a little bit, listener. But my dad and I were just talking about how someone had asked me, who edits your podcast? And I said, well, no one, it's unfiltered. And so you're getting the unfiltered version from me after working out this morning. And my dad, I don't even know it's a Mickey Mouse on your hat. What is that in your hat, Dad? Oh, it's a Mickey hat. That's super
It's
cute.
actually Steamboat Willie, the original character, who now it's actually the copyright is over. Everyone can use that image. Use that image wherever you like it.
Love it.
Anyway, but Lindsay, perfect, like you're like perfectly put together, and this is going to air on YouTube, but also for people that they can just listen to it as well. But I just appreciate that you were like, okay, I'm going to look pretty and I'm like in my workout clothes.
You look
No, stop
fabulous.
You do. You look great.
Well, we are so happy to have you. And I know you, but I don't know about your story today. I know briefly we've kind of like talked about it. I do know that you know about my dad. So Dad, Stan, meet Lindsay. Lindsay, meet
Hello,
Stan.
Lindsay. Good
Yeah,
morning.
nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
So, first of all, we like to start off our conversations by asking you this question on a scale of 1 to 10, one being that it is like a day where you probably should not have gotten out of bed and you shouldn't be peopling, to 10 being a day, it's your best day you've ever lived in your life and there's not a worry in the world. And now, listen, I know you're a mom of 2 kids and that's never like the thing, but what is your number today?
I'm gonna let's go with a solid 7. We'll do a 7.
Woohoo!
I like
And
it.
the day is young.
There you
Yeah.
go. What would it take to have you go from a 7 to a 7.25 today?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I don't even know.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe just to get some of my other stuff accomplished and my child to have a great day at school.
All right, there you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we, love having you as a guest, so thanks for doing that. And you and I had a couple conversations. We talked a little bit about some things that have happened in your world. So I'd love to just open it up to you and to say to you, what's your story? Like, what is it, what makes you Lindsay and where did that come from? And we'll give you like some time to kind of share with us,
Good
for their listeners.
What makes me me? My story pretty much starts when I was a baby.
Mine
Where
too.
yeah, yeah, right. When I was a baby, I did a lot of crying all the time, and my mom just knew in her gut like something just was not right. And that took me until, gosh, 3 years old, finally for like someone to like hear my mom out. And I was formally diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis at age 3. And
You actually
so,
have recall of this?
I'm sorry.
You actually have recall of of your history? You remember it?
Remember
Oh,
it?
yeah. I actually can remember to the point of being 3 because it was actually really traumatic.
Wow.
I remember my pediatrician, I remember my mom taking me to the pediatrician and them saying, we need to go immediately to All Children's, where I was living at the time. And I remember my grandmother meeting us there, and I remember like being really scared. So I think it was just the trauma of being scared that why I remember all of that. And I remember there being like 30 doctors in a room,
Were you in
and they're all
constant
like staring.
pain?
I'm sorry.
Were you in constant pain?
Yeah. Yeah. I was swelling and
Wow.
I was hot to the touch, cold to the touch sometimes, but I cried all the time. Like I just cried all the
Wow.
time. And it was cold where we lived. And so that didn't help, help matters. And so I guess that particular day, it was just really very noticeable. And that's why the pediatrician's like, wait, hold on. Um, so yeah, by the time I got there were like 30 people in that room, and it was just really terrifying. And I remember my mom crying. I remember there was a lot of tears. I don't remember like little bits and parts, but from then on, I was there a lot. So like lots of blood work, lots of appointments with a rheumatologist, just lots of testing, just lots of everything. And it had gotten, it was tough. It was not an easy road. I remember the pain. It's a pain you can't really describe. Um, And from kind of then on, there was just lots of things in my childhood that, my parents were amazing. I had a really good family, a really good Christian family. Not even just my immediate family, but an extended family, just really good Christian family. So I had an amazing support system, but childhood was very difficult, even into like college.
Wow. Ooh.
With being teased immersively. I was a beanpole, teeny tiny, bony little girl. And then my jaw just did not cooperate and grow the way it was supposed to grow. So like from early age until into high school, college, it was very difficult to have friends. I mean, I had some, but like it was just few and far between. I was the homebody. I stayed with my parents. I was teased immersively in school, bullied, harassed. But I mean, that kind of started my journey of like who I am today because I don't, that's not what I'm about. People are people. I see people for the humans that they are, the kindness that they are. Um, and yeah, I feel like it made me who I am today because I'm so much more of an empathetic person than I maybe could have been. And thankfully, at age 11, I mean, praise the Lord, but we truly believe when I went back at 11, I mean, we had been going to doctors all that time. I just kind of, what they would like to say is I grew out of it. That is not how we feel. We feel like I was healed. It was a miracle and I was healed. Do I have lasting effects from it today from medications and all the steroids I was on as a kid? 100%. Still dealing with immune system issues and stuff like that. But like I have not had achy feelings like that. I just don't, if I got my blood work today, it would not show that.
That's
So
fabulous. Wow.
it's
Ooh.
amazing. Yeah. But just, there was a lot of heartache. And I'm thankful, many people and many children don't go home to supportive families, right? So when you're bullied at school or harassed at school or just in general in life population, even as an adult, I'm grateful, like even now, if there's a person who's bullying, harassing, I have an amazing husband, a good family, I have a good support system, but like many people don't have that in this world, right? They don't
You've
have that.
also got yourself.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I believe in myself. And thankfully, my parents instilled that in me at an early age to believe in myself. And I also, I can thank my dad a lot for this too, that my parents didn't give me an excuse. So like I did everything every other kid did. I might not have done it to their
Sure.
ability, but I did everything. I was in dance. I did all of those things. Thankfully, my parents did not use my diagnosis as like a crutch for me or, hey, they just made me just keep going. Because if they did, I might be in a wheelchair. My story might look different had I had something that held me back, but I didn't have that. I did everything all the other kids did. It just looked a little bit different sometimes, or I took frequent breaks, or gym wasn't my favorite, or,
Mm.
but yeah, my story was
Shout
different.
out for the dad part. Yes.
Yes, I know. My dad's
The dad's
amazing in that
moment.
way. And
Any
now
Lindsay,
having,
any siblings?
I
Sis-
do. I have an older brother and an older sister. And their story looks, my sister and I've talked about this too, because her story looks, they had to deal with it differently than I
Oh,
did, right?
sure.
So they dealt with teasing just because of who I was, and they didn't like that either. And there was many times, my sister and I actually spoke in her classroom for 2 years about this, just about like, what's my word? And I perseverance, right? Like, but I feel sometimes like they have a story too, because they dealt with it differently than I did, right?
Sure.
And so, and I even tell my parents this sometimes too, is like when people would say stuff out in public or like tease or laugh or poke fun, I did not want to draw attention to it. I actually preferred people not to say anything to them because that is a them problem, not a me
Sure.
problem.
Mm. What
Yeah.
is the age difference between you and your siblings again? Can you remind me they're how much older than you?
My sister is 18 months older than me. And let's see, my brother's 5 years older than me.
Well, so that's interesting because, like, if this is happening to you when you're 3, your sister's about 4 or 5 years old, right? And so I would imagine that family dynamic, having children, I know having a child that at that age you want a lot of attention, but you would have been taking the attention away from them. And so you're right, like their story may have been that different dynamic about, they don't know that, you're going through this struggle, this challenge. They just know that mommy and daddy are spending a lot more time with you, but they kind of you don't understand it, right? Like your brother may have been like, 10 years old, doesn't really understand why that's happening. So it's interesting for that dynamic to happen, especially because
Yeah, I mean, I even I remember I had to change rooms with my sister. I got the bigger room. We talked about that today. I got
Oh,
the
I'm
bigger room because
sure.
I needed a water bed, and I needed the bigger space for the water bed, right? And so she got booted to the other room. There's a lot of things like that. Just attention wise, even I remember in car rides and stuff, I didn't like to be touched because I was achy. I was achy all the time, so like, don't touch me. I got the best spot. There was a lot of stuff like that
Sure.
I even think about today. It's like, I wonder what our dynamic could have been, had it been a little bit different sometimes.
No, not worth going back.
But
Yeah,
you
that's
talk
right.
about that and you say that you were made fun of, right? And that's a really, at 12 years old or 11 years old, it stopped hurting, but your body had still taken, you were probably still smaller, like you said. And I don't mean to make you go back to that, but like, what were some of the things that kids, you said you were smaller and like skinnier. What were
Oh
some
my
of the
gosh.
kids would
Oh, I got
say?
called. Are you asking like what I got called? And
Yeah.
okay, super painful.
You don't have to
Um,
go there if you don't want, but I want people to be
okay.
aware of
No,
like,
it's good.
yeah.
It's good. I got called drug baby. My parents didn't do drugs. They've had terrible nicknames for me, like No Chinlin, just awful, just crude, awful things. Always asked if I had an eating disorder. I mean, just why are your bones like that? Why can't you do what everybody else does? Just you're
Horrible.
ugly. Just
Sure. Painful
mean-spirited,
stuff. Sure.
ugly things.
And
Yeah.
you think about that. And so the reason I ask is that that wasn't a time, and I know that your age, so I know that it was way before social media.
Oh my God.
And, the reason I was so fascinated to have you on today is that that was, like say it happened to you when you were 10. I'm not going to say how old you are, but that's a while back, not that you're like an old lady either.
No, no.
My dad's the old
You
guy
know,
on the
sometimes.
call and I'm older. But like the reason I'm bringing it up is that can you even imagine what it would have been like for you with social media? And that's what scares me to death is that, we are raising kids in the time of that, and the bullying has transitioned from what you're seeing somebody say to you at school or on the playground to now following you 24 hours a day.
Mhm. I can't really, I mean, I can't really imagine because a lot of times my parents, my family, I never came home and said what people said to me. I mean, on occasion I would, but like I didn't come home and just unload it every day because I had a mission. My mission was I was going to get my miracle. My mission was I'm going to get through this and I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to persevere, right? So like some part of me felt like I didn't have time for the junk, but the other part was it hurt, right? So like I cried at night when no one saw. I cried in the shower. Felt really badly about myself. But at the same time, like you're right, I didn't have that 24 hours a day. I got it at school or out in public or whatever. But like nowadays, like, I mean, that goes right back to like, you don't know what people are walking through. You don't know the home that they live in. And that's what I even try to tell my sister's students. It's like, you don't know what these kids are going home to. Your fellow students, you don't know what they're going home to. Even adults, you don't know what people are walking through. You have no idea people's thoughts, right? We all have negative thoughts, but you don't know what people are walking through. And social media is a whole beast in itself. I really, truly cannot imagine getting through that in today's world.
A lot of kids are not getting through it. That's a problem.
Right, right. That's why everybody's on anxiety meds and depression meds and, just trying to get through life. Life's already hard, right? It's a struggle, but
Well, let's take one step further. Let's take the perspective when you're young, you're extremely vulnerable. If those same things would happen to you at this age, at this point in your life, you say, get the hell out of my face. You built a strength around you that it doesn't matter anymore.
Well,
well, it does and it doesn't. I mean, I want to say I wish that were my case, right? Like I wish that I didn't care. And Jamie and I talk about this because there's some instances in my world right now that there's some people and they just won't person will not leave me alone and I'm
Give us
harassed.
their names, please.
no. But Dad, like I think like that's the thing is like Dad, like you probably see it. I mean, you're retired, but I've been in your community and like I think a bully is a bully is a bully, right? So and bullies, I believe, come from a place of insecurity. So every movie you watch, like I think of Billy Madison. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, Lindsay, but there's like the O'Doyle family.
Right,
And they're just like angry people because of like where they're coming from. And
right.
so, like you said earlier, you don't know where someone's coming from and why they're displaying the behavior they have. And I tell my daughter this all the time. I say, someone might come in and be really nasty to you on the playground, but you don't know what happened to them. Not that I'm excusing it.
Right.
You don't know what happened to them in the morning. And I think that sometimes, I would love to say that bullies go away when they're children, but they don't. They exist at, 8, 15, 25, 35, 45, 75. They exist. And even though maybe you may get some more coping skills for it, it still hurts.
Well, it's triggering, I think, for me, and I think you and I talked about that. It's triggering for me because I'm just like, I go, your part of you is like, you would like to think that like you're over all of it, right? You're over all of it. It's behind you. You don't look back, but like something will pop up and it triggers you, and you're just like, dang,
You can't lose the perspective. Part of that bullying comes from a weakness within them to make themselves feel better, more valuable by showing someone else's weakness. They have weaknesses also, but they build walls around themselves.
Yeah.
It's how you handle it. It's a lot of attitude, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of work.
When I think it's like I think bullying changes, right? I think like
yeah.
when you're a child, it's more clear that you're being bullied, right? Someone's either physically pushing you or they're calling you a name, but I think as you grow up and you're an adult, the bullying changes, but sometimes it's more intensified because of the way that it's done, right? It's almost like masquerade where someone is, I don't want to say the word passive aggressive, but where like you're not really sure. And then all of a sudden they like just slide on in there, like stealth mode. You're like, holy crap, Like, you're like, oh my gosh, whoa. And so it's hard. It definitely is a blow to, like you said, triggering, but
Yeah.
also like it's definitely just like because you come from a place of being human kindness, and I know that religion's important to you, and you want to have that like inner faith that all people are good. You get surprised by, wait a second, this person's, we watch what's Wizards of Waverly Place, and there's like a dark angel, right? And she like has like white wings and they turn to like dark, and it's like a dark angel. And I almost like visualize that you seeing somebody and then they do something, you're like, whoa, like their angel wings change color. And so it's hard. Lindsay, I'm curious, you have children. And so you are now raising two kids in this world. How have you taken the lessons that you learned of that perseverance, which is incredible, and shared that with them as they start to navigate their own challenges in this world?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So one of my children has some needs, his story to tell, not mine. But he has some needs. And so he's had some medical trauma, along the way. And so it's funny when he goes through some things, I have to put my stuff back, and deal with his. And so for him, I'm like, okay, this is what kind of mommy went through. And I did the same thing. And you got this, you can do this, all the things. But then, he started to notice in third grade, he's in fifth now. He started to notice in third grade, I'm a little different than other people. Don't really know why. I'm like my parents. I don't give him an excuse. He really doesn't know his formal diagnosis, and he doesn't know. He could scrape the surface, but not anything major, right? So he knows I go to OT and PT. I do all different things sometimes than the other kids. And last year, he dealt with some issues, bullying. I wouldn't say it was to the extreme of where mine probably was, but they were there. And so, I just told him, I said, buddy, everybody's different, right? And that's what makes the world go round. So just because you face something different than the next person, doesn't make you any less as someone else. You're a great kid, you're a great boy, and here's all of your strengths, and you've got this. Don't, if they say something to you, shrug it off. That's not a you problem, right? That is a them problem. And you never know where they're coming from. So, forgiveness goes a long way. But, also I want him to know that like, and that's my battle as an adult is I forgive and go, just let somebody back in. And it's okay to also, and I'm trying to figure out how to navigate teaching him that because I want him to be kind to everyone and forgive and give grace. But it's okay to go, I'm going to draw the line in the sand, and this is where I stand, and you can do you over there. That was something I'm learning still as an adult. So that's something I'm navigating with him, is just trying to figure out, that aspect.
There's a question with regard to your son. Was the bullying related to physical aspects of himself more than emotional?
It's kind of physical. Well, basically, he started in kindergarten with some bullying, but it was a special situation with a kid who literally couldn't help what he was doing. He had special circumstances himself. And so Beckett started out with like a little tick, and it just started out like a little face thing.
Sure.
And then basically it just kind of grew from there. And he doesn't do like, he's not screaming ticks or anything, but like he'll do like a little movement here, or a little movement there, or a little, you know. And
Sure.
so when he's excited, when he's nervous, when he's
It'll increase substantially.
it
Sure.
just increases. And so if somebody tells him, hey, don't do that, you can't tell him to stop, because now
Yeah.
he's aware of it, and it just keeps going. So it was more just kids teasing for that, or not understanding. Thankfully, we had an amazing teacher who set everybody straight, and had a child who did the same thing years ago. And so she was able to share in a fourth grade level at the time of like why and where. I'm not saying they weren't teasing after that, but it
Sure.
really lessened it. Yeah.
It's so incredible. You talk about teachers. We have incredible, I've been blessed with incredible teachers with my daughter. And we were talking the other day about how at our school, there is a child who, I'm not sure of her diagnosis, but has been in a wheelchair since she was born. I'm not going to mention any names or any of that, but is in a wheelchair, really has no functioning of her body. And the teacher was explaining it to her class. And so my daughter came home and was talking about, Mommy, did you know that there's someone at our school that she can't use her arms, she can't use her legs, but she's in a wheel? And we started talking and said, yeah. So what did you learn about that? And so I learned that it's okay and that we should always say hi. It doesn't mean she can't hear us or she can't see us, that we should say hi and see her. I said, exactly. I said, Hannah, oh, I just said her name. I'm going to edit that out. um, but I said, we're all different. We're all different. And that is so special and unique. And then we were at the grocery store this weekend, and the person who was checking us out and that was bagging our groceries had Down syndrome and had said something to us when we were leaving the store and said, thank you so much for coming in and have a great day, kid. But because of the Down syndrome, it wasn't clear of what he was saying to her. I understood completely. And so as we were leaving, she said, Mommy, what did he say? And I told her, and she said, I didn't understand him. I said, well, did you think that he looked differently than you? Or do you think something was different? She said, yes. Isn't that cool? I said, let me share with you that people are so different. And it happened to be that they're also collecting donations right now for March of Dimes. So we gave a donation for that. We talked through that. And I think that that is where we need more of that, right? That's what I'm getting, that
100%.
teachers talking about that and sharing what the kids are different and talking about it doesn't make them worse or better. We're just all different. When you talk about the tics, I've got people in my life who have Tourette's and to an extreme level and get made fun of from adults when they're flying on airplanes and get made fun of because they're so not accepting. And the more that we can be accepting of that and realize that, like you said before, we have no idea what people's struggles are.
No.
There's two stories I'll share with you. Well, so one was this morning, she said, as you're getting ready for school, Mommy, my teacher gave a girl in my class a stuffed animal on Friday, but said don't open it or don't share it with the rest of class because no one else got one. And she's like, and I was wondering why she got it. And I asked her, and she said she would tell me on Monday. And I said, well, it's not really your option to ask. Sometimes we're curious about something, but we don't always have to ask someone to share. We don't know what's going on in that little girl's world. We have no idea what's going on. And your teacher was probably trying to help her by giving her something, but we don't know. And it's not your place to ask. And I just thought of that. And then another story I remember when I was in college, I had a sorority sister who in our sorority house parked in the handicap spot. And so she came in and I was like, oh, nice, Jill, parking in the handicap spot. Like, I can't believe you would do that. You want to get a closer parking. And she was like, no, you're an idiot, basically. She's like to me, I have a handicap. And I didn't know it because you couldn't see it.
Right.
Right. Like, and so she had, I forget, cystic fibrosis. And you can't see that on somebody, but yet it's something that it's a challenge or it's something they're going through that they need to have that, walking was hard and breathing was hard. And so I just think like what you said earlier, is so huge that we don't know what other people
Right.
are going through.
And the other thing is that I find one thing I do love about my kiddo is because he's had medical, right, up until now, and because he's done every little therapy there is, OT, PT, ABA therapy, speech language therapy, like we've done it all. And we've been around so many different kinds of kids, right? We've been around kids that are nonverbal. We've been around kids that have Down syndrome. We've been around kids that have so many diagnoses. And Beckett sees none of it. And that is so lovely to me. He literally sees none of it. At therapy, he would speak to, I remember there was a teenager, right? Teenager had nonverbal autism. And Beckett just happened to have the same therapy time as him. And Beckett knew no different. I mean, he would actually, the fellow was afraid of smaller children at the time. And Beckett found a way to connect. He found that way to connect to him. And so even now, like when we're out somewhere and like I can tell my daughter, a curious, 6-year-old is like kind of just looking, whatever. I know Beckett's he does this immediately to whoever it is. If we're at the hospital and he sees a kid in the elevator, he's immediately going, hi. And I just love that he wants to connect because he sees there is no difference for him. And I love that about him. I mean, and it even goes to like, this is off topic, but it's still the same. We have adopted children in our family and they're not the same color. They're not all the same color as our whole family. And Beckett has no idea. He has no idea. I didn't even know that he knew the difference because one time he was coloring and he colored and I was like, who's that? I noticed that it was a darker, and he's like, oh, that's cousin so-and-so. And I'm like, you do know, but like, it's not a big deal because we don't make it a big deal. And the other thing to that is what you're saying as an adult, like it still goes to that, right? We're so, and it is important to have like not have those like racial tendencies and stuff like that. We're worried about inclusivity with lots of, things in life, but we're not inclusive. We don't have a focus on that for people who are inherently different than us. And there's nothing they can do about it. You know what I mean? That is something that like, it's huge for me. And I want both of my kids to grow up knowing that like people are going to be inherently different. There is not a difference from you to someone who's nonverbal. Their soul means something to this world. They have something to offer. Everyone has something to offer to the world, right?
Yeah. I have a friend who he used to do this show in schools in Chicago. It's called Handicap This. And he would come out and one of the actors or one of the performers on the stage was in a full wheelchair. And he was, his twin brother who had like, they were twins. And one of the brothers full on in a wheelchair. And I'm going to mess up what his diagnosis. I'm not going to say it. And then his brother had nothing. And then my friend was the other actor on stage. They talked about like in going into schools about acceptance and just including people and understanding that and knowing that. And I just think you're right. There is a need just for us. Like, we don't know what people are going through. We don't know what people have, there's a TV show on Apple called Ted Lasso, and there's an episode and he says, be curious, not judgmental. I just think it's like, it's such a great episode. And it just happens to be about like something not related to someone having, a challenge or a struggle, but about just him playing darts. I mean, it's kind of like it, that just stuck so hard. It's like, be curious, not judgmental. And I think that is such a huge piece of that. I wanted to ask you this. You said that you would sometimes come home and you wouldn't talk about what was happening at school and you would go and cry at night or cry in the shower. And I had a conversation last night with somebody who was saying, not every child can come home. And you said you had parents who were so supportive, yet you still were hiding some of that pain to yourself.
Yeah.
Now that you are raising 2 children and you did that yourself, what are some things that you are doing as you raise them to minimize that so that they don't do the same thing and they don't go cry at night without you knowing about it, or they don't go cry in the shower without you knowing about it?
Well, it's interesting. That's actually a really interesting question. So I think part of the reason I did that sometimes is just because I didn't want to like burden. I always have that. I don't want to burden people, right? I don't want to burden my parents, or I just didn't want them to feel sad. I don't know. It was just something in me. I didn't want that for them. And so, because I don't know, I just felt like everything sometimes was about, just struggling. I don't know. So I just didn't want that. But now that my child, so like, it's funny. This summer, we had an instance where he was playing with somebody, wanted to play with somebody, and that person didn't want to play with him because they told another child they don't like him because he makes bad decisions or bad choices sometimes. He's a bad kid. And so Beckett, delete that word. My child's name.
You've said it a ton of times. We'll try and delete that out.
It doesn't matter.
You said unfiltered.
I know.
It's unfiltered.
So he heard that. He's in the pool with another little fellow who's much younger than him. And he heard that. And I watched him. And his immediate reaction was to just go under the water. And I knew he was trying to cry, but he wouldn't. And so he does, what's funny is he does the same thing that I do. He doesn't want to talk about it. If he tells me a little snippet, it's just that it's okay, mom. Like he wants to make it
Sure.
okay for me. If something happens, he watches my face, right? So he'll turn around and look at my face to see my reaction. What is mom's reaction? And so that day when the dust settled and everything like that, I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let him sweep this under the rug, right? I'm not going to do that. So we sat in his room and I just said, buddy, mom heard what so-and-so said, and I know you heard it too. And so let's talk about it really quick. And so I talked about it and I said, it hurt my feelings for you. So it's okay to say, hey, that hurt my feelings, right? And I said, and really, it was okay for you to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to know what that boy says about me. I don't want to know, right? It's okay to say that because sharing your feelings or getting it out there, it's okay. It's okay not to sweep it under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen because I want you to just work through those feelings because it's bound to happen, right? It's bound to happen in your life where somebody's going to say something mean. So like, we don't need to hide it. And I say, you don't have to worry about me. I'm not, and if I do cry, that's also okay, right? It's okay because what he struggles with is, I don't want to say like quote unquote invisible, but for the person that doesn't have like a lot of, like I could go in a room and pick out kids who might have something similar to what he has or what he's going through, but for most people they don't, right? So a lot of times what people see in him is, oh man, he's this or he's that. And you know, it's okay to announce your feelings and it's okay to come home and cry, right? It's okay to come home and cry. You are supported here. It's okay to say whatever it was, get it out. And sometimes I think that he doesn't want me to know because I think he's afraid that I wouldn't let him befriend that person anymore, right? But like that's also a great opportunity to show grace, right? Um, just keep showing grace. But and I said if it continues, it's okay to say, you know what? I can be friendly to you without being friends, right? And
Yeah.
that's something I think parents need to talk about with their kids too. It's okay to be friendly, but you don't have to be best friends, right?
There's your question. Do you ever get to a point in your life, like now, if
Mhm.
some of those insults came, similar insults from adults, and stuff, just look back at the person and say, "So,
Yeah.
I mean, what can
I'm
one
not
really?"
great at it. I don't love confrontation and I'm
We can
getting,
do
I'm
role
getting,
playing. We can do role playing if you like.
I know, right? Thank God for Jaime. She does a lot of that with me. I don't know what I would do in my life without her. I tell my husband all the time, she's my person. But, I think I'm getting better to a place where I'm like, I will say that a specific situation happened a few weeks ago, and my gut reaction was like just wanted to respond and smooth it out and make it better. And
Sure.
actually, just because you're invited to the table or invited to a conversation doesn't mean you have to accept the invitation, right? And I'm kind of at a place where I just didn't accept the invitation. There's nothing for me to say or do, or I'm fine, right? Like that I don't have to do anything with it. It's okay to like leave it and let it go. This is not a me problem, right? And I think so many times I would just try to overdo it, right? That's why like the perfectionist in me. This is something that I told you last week. I am working through some stuff with myself. I am a perfectionist. I want to do everything the best to my ability. I want everyone to think that I'm the nicest or that I'm and it's okay that like, and I think that comes from like, overcompensating, right? For like some of my physical things that I felt like people wouldn't befriend me for, or people would not be in a relationship or tease me for. So I overdo it and I overcompensate. I don't see that really in my son because I think he is who he is. And he doesn't see that aspect, but I've been doing this my whole life. This is a cycle I've been doing my whole life is to overcompensate.
I have a
And
grandson who does have tics, and I think what I've learned from him, there are times when people who are not aware of the situation, well, he'll learn to just own it. Listen, I have a condition. I'm special. I can live with it. Can you live with it? Because
right.
bullies oftentimes they're showing their own weaknesses and say, any condition you have, listen, I have this condition. I was born this way. I consider myself special. What's your specialty?
It's so true. That's actually really great advice. It is. It's actually really great just shut it down advice.
But
Yeah.
own the situation. I've got this
Right.
condition. It's not going away. Maybe I was given it for a reason, maybe not. But why are you trying to make me feel bad? Am I?
Right.
I'm sure you have weaknesses, and you can usually tell what a bully's weaknesses are. Why?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make you feel bad. Why are you trying to give me a bad time? This is
What's
just a
in it
thought.
for you? What's in it for you to make someone else feel
Yeah.
bad? You know,
Right.
I think
Right.
Mel Robbins is a motivational speaker, and I love that she's like, just let them be them, right? But then I think also I like that what you're saying is like confront it and say, and I say that to, my child, I say, if someone's being mean to you, be like, does it make you feel good to be
Right.
mean to me? Does that make, do you feel good doing that? Does that make you happy?
Well, I think if you
Yeah.
interact in a non-confrontational way, it's
Yeah.
very disarming for them because they're looking for you to come back with something. They want you to be hurt. They want you to
Hmm.
cry. They want you to have an impact. Take the sting out of their. Listen, hey, this is me. If you don't like me, then we'll talk about something else.
Right.
But only have to own. Everyone owns their own situation. We're all
That's actually
special. We're
really
all
great
defective in our
advice.
own ways.
Yeah.
I did a talk not too long ago and it talked about depression and anxiety and how they're like a sneaky beast, right? Because we don't know what people are going through. And I just looked at my stats about that and it affects 3.6% of people globally are affected by anxiety. And I thought was really interesting is that and not to make this down, but like over almost 800,000 people lose their lives to depression each year. But it's the second leading cause of death among those ages 15 and 29. And the reason I say that is
Wow.
that I cannot open up Yahoo News or Google News or a newspaper or anything again and see one more child who is 12 years old or 13 years old who thought that the answer for them based on the bullying was to end their life. Like
Right.
it just is, I mean, it literally breaks my heart every time. And that is like, I'm on my mission. Like, listen, we will talk about everything. When you get in the car, let's talk about the best parts, the worst parts, all that kind of stuff. And I love that you said, that you tell your children it's okay to be upset. It's okay to cry.
100%.
Because as adults, we start forgetting that ourselves, right? Like there's a moment where you just want to scream at the top of your lungs or you want to cry. And there's been days where I do just want to cry. And I'm like, okay, wow, life's pressures are real. And I think that's such an awesome coping thing that you've shared. And I love that our listeners are hearing that, like telling your kid it's okay to be sad.
Totally.
It's
Totally.
okay. That's why I would say you don't have to be a 10 and there's rarely ever 10s. It's okay to be a
Right.
1. It's okay to be a
Right.
2.
Yeah,
It's
but
okay.
does anyone teach us that we actually control the mind controls our own emotions? We create anxiety, we create fear, we create joy. It's
True.
controlling our minds rather than having our minds control us. Even it's an issue for adults all life long. You
Yeah.
control
True.
your own destiny.
Well, and your thoughts can be the own cancer in yourself as well, too, right? It's like,
100%. I
yeah, the
truly believe that.
people,
You've got to take your thoughts captive
yeah.
because it can take you places and keep you there longer than you wanted to stay, you know?
And people, there have been research and studies that have showed that people, that are sick, when their thoughts are bad, the illness does not get better, but when they change their mindset, and listen, it's not that easy, right? Someone's listening, being like, well, it's not so easy to change your mindset, but there are different tactics and different things that you can do to get there. And I think talking about it and not
Mhm.
holding it inside and bottling all up is a huge piece of that as well, too, right? Like that's a huge way to navigate moving forward. I think that's a big,
Yeah. I mean, now that I'm a parent of a special child, it's like, I tell my mom all the time, gosh, like, I really didn't know how hard you had it. You know what I mean? I really had no idea. And she carried a lot of like the weight of like the therapies and the things and the doctor's appointments. She carried a lot of the medical trauma weight, you know, and my dad was just positive, like just, I'm positive this isn't, sometimes it was like almost it wasn't happening a little bit. This is not what you have.
yeah.
And so she carried a lot of it. And now as a parent, I'm doing that. And I'm realizing, and I told you last week, I realized that like sometimes he's been through some difficult times, really difficult times. I'm not even sure, like sometimes I thought, I don't even know if he's gonna make it, like as a baby and into toddlerhood. And I parent sometimes now out of the 911 trauma that he was back then. And I
Mhm.
had somebody tell me, she's like, but he's not there, Lindsay. You have to remember he's not there. But as a parent of a kid with needs, sometimes what I really want the world to know from like a special needs parent is like, please give some grace, right? Just the judgment. Because I had it as a kid being judged and all the things, but like I deal with it now as a parent, and I'm like, I realize that like I shut people out, right? So like we just had people over our house for like pizza, and besides a birthday party where we have people over, we don't have people over for like pizza and stuff like that because I have this like wall of protection around him because I don't want him judged, right? I don't want people to think something of him. And you know what? I've realized over time, like, that's just not healthy, right? That's not healthy for him. It's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for any one
It's
of us.
avoidance more than acceptance,
Well,
no
and you're going,
question.
yeah,
Right.
and you're going off of what you don't want him to go through what you went
I
through.
don't know. I don't want him to go through what I went through. Even I tell my parents that, and my husband that all the time, like going to medical appointments. I watch him and it breaks me. When he had surgery this past spring, I remember sitting in that room after he came out, and I had already been triggered, right? Because I had the same surgery when I was 6 years old. So I was like, oh, mercy moo. I was a mess. And I told my husband, he looked at me and he was like, it's okay to go to the bathroom. It's okay. It's okay to go and cry and go and have a minute. And I did. I laid on that bathroom gross floor in a hospital and I cried. And I thought, you can do this. You can do hard things, right? But like a lot of times, you push stuff out. But as a parent of a kid with needs, I'm realizing that like I don't have to push everybody out, right? Because there are lots of people who love us, support us, and are not judgmental people. They could care less if, like, let's say, I
Sure.
mean, he's not having meltdown, but like let's say he had a moment where he was having a moment where he wasn't listening because he's stressed and his ears aren't listening, anymore. Like it's okay, right? Who cares? Kids are kids. A lot of times kids are kids, right? We all just need to be accepted. But like I want to scream from the rooftops sometimes is people, you have no idea how much harder you're making this, right? Let him be him, let me be me. Let just stop the judgment. Just be kind. Be kind, right? It doesn't take extra to be kind to people. If you feel like you need to do something or be ugly, take it home, right? Take it home, be ugly in your house because you're also raising kids who are following your footsteps, right? I
Mhm.
want my kids to be the most non-judgmental, kind, compassionate people. But like, I mean, just as walking around as adults, right? Who've never gotten over that phase of their life where they feel the need to just be icky, but they're raising the same kinds of kids, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, as a parent, I have one who's completely fine and one who is working through some stuff. And I just want to scream from the rooftops to parents, be accepting to the little boy who's I know his parents really don't want him to their child to play with my child. And that's fine, right? That's their loss. That's
Sure.
the little fella's loss. But like you have got to start a method in your house of acceptance, right? Because it's not just about skin color or someone's preferences or stuff like that. Inclusivity means everyone. It means everyone of every walk of life, right? Yeah.
Jamie may discuss the benefits of primal scream that we've discussed many times. And if you want, we even do a primal scream on this particular podcast. I would suggest if we do that to turn the volume down, but that's it's really very it is very it's very very liberating.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Lindsay, I think your story is incredible and there's so many facets to it, right? About like what you went through as a child, what your mom and your dad, how they supported you from your siblings, and now how you're navigating, hopefully not that same path, but a similar path and trying to make sure that your children don't go down the same, path that you did and that they feel accepted. You've given a lot of advice to families that are dealing, that may interact with your child or another child that has some of that. What advice would you give to a child that is, say, I don't know, when they could comprehend, maybe like 6 or 7 years old, that since you went through that, that is possibly navigating what you went through? What advice would you give to that child? If you could go, actually, let's do this. If you could go back to yourself, and I know you persevered and stuff like that, but I'm just curious, like, what would you say to someone who might be experiencing the same pain
So
that
what
you?
would you say to your 6-year-old self? That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. That's an emotional question, actually. Yeah, that is an emotional question. It's something that I'm walking through even now. Just why am I the way that I am? Gosh, I think I would tell myself like it's okay to put your head down, right? And like persevere, but like it's not okay to like ignore the dents that are coming at you, right? Because you're getting dented, right? And it's it's okay to like just truly be yourself, right? It's okay to truly be yourself and not overcompensate because that's something at 40 years old that I do today is I overcompensate. And at a 6-year-old, 7-year-old level, not that I would completely understand that at the time, but just like accept myself, right? Truly accept myself for who I am, what I bring to the table. And I wish that I like didn't care. I wish that like as a child that like I would
Sure.
not have put my value on the table for somebody else to say it wasn't good enough or whatever. You know what I mean? I wish that I would not have allowed anyone to make me feel a certain way
Yeah.
because like I am who I am. I'm special. I'm kind. I have all of these great things about myself. Do I have flaws? I have many flaws, right? But like physical was not something that I could have helped, right? It was not something I did. It was not something my mom did. It happened, right?
Yeah.
And I do. I wish that I would have been kinder to myself
Hmm.
because I beat myself up and it's something I do today.
Are
So
there, are there not support groups for parents out there with special kids?
I'm sorry.
So are there not support groups locally?
It's funny you should ask. Actually, I had somebody ask me that the other day. There's many groups out there that do certain things, but I have not found personally a group that like you could that is one thing that like I think is actually needed. I wish that even our school community could have a hey, if you're a parent with kids with needs, there's something about coming together and sharing, right? Because that's the other ticket of being a special needs parent and you don't want to be a Debbie Downer. So like you don't tell people your stuff because you don't want to be a Debbie Downer. And that's something that that's that other ticket of like I never wanted to do that with my parents or my family is share because I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. And I don't share a lot now because I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, right? Because like it's hard to be the parent of a kid with needs. It is like the most challenging but rewarding. I mean, it's very rewarding. I always say that like even what I went through, I still felt like I saw black and white. And then I have a kid like this and I see color now, like in just try to see life through how he sees it because it's different. It's much different than I do. Um, but it would be nice to have a community of parents that are from all walks of life that you could say, hey, this worked for me. And hey, this is what I just experienced. Or hey, today sucked. And here's why, without the feeling of like judgment, because you get it everywhere
Absolutely.
else.
I almost wonder if that's your next project.
I know.
Yeah,
I
thinking
think about that.
about like creating that and starting locally with our own community. I think that that is something that you would do really well because listen, life is hard, right? Life is hard and there are challenges and there are peaks and there are valleys and then there are storms and then there's smooth sailing and like just in general as a human.
Right.
And then becoming a parent and having to navigate that for other people or getting married and having to navigate that double time and then having a parent having to navigate that and then having a pet. I mean, like you add so many things into that I think that, creating the more support we can create for each other, the more we can be real and unfiltered with each other, the better we'll all feel and you don't feel as solo anymore. And I think that's
Totally.
so maybe
And
we'll
that
have
is the one
to do
thing I
that.
think people don't know about special needs parenting is how isolating it is. It's very isolating. I don't have the same like parenting journey as most, right? So like where everyone else is like planning play dates and stuff like that, or getting their toddler out in the world and playing at the mall or what, I didn't have
Sure.
that. We were at therapies. We weren't at therapies, we were at doctor's appointments. And if we weren't there, we were at home working on the things that they taught us in the therapy. That's what we were doing. So like I don't have the same experiences as most parents. And so it's very isolating. And then when you do try, it goes back to that. Like I remember I went to like a mom's group and I mean, I think other moms can relate to this too. My child wasn't on breast milk. He had to be on a certain formula because
What?
that's what
How
was best.
dare
I
you?
know. But like it was a big deal. I mean, I was shunned. I mean, how silly is that? But I was shunned for some of the
Oh,
choices that I had to do. And it just goes right back to that. So, I started pulling and then I pulled and then I pulled. And the more diagnosis and when he finally got his true, I knew, right? Like you're a mom, like your kid. I knew something wasn't right. I know for a long time. But like when I finally got the written piece of paper
Sure.
with it on there, y'all, I left that appointment and I made the mistake of going by myself with him. Like, why in
Oh,
the world did I not
devastating.
bring my
Sure.
husband? I
yeah.
went by myself and I knew what they were going to say. I was just needing the piece of paper to like do what I needed at school and all that. I got that dang piece of paper and I drove home and I'm seeing this little fella in the back seat of my rear view mirror and I'm crying. I'm like, he's in first grade, at the end of first grade, and I'm wailing in the car. And he had no idea. Like he had no, he's like, Mom, what's wrong? And I said, I remember like trying to be like, oh, Mom's just crying. I'm just emotional. I'm just tired today. And I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to like share. And he just still doesn't know all the things. Like, right. I want him to be a kid. And so I just remember how, and from there, I just kept pulling and I kept pulling back because people aren't safe, right? Because that's something I've known from my childhood. People aren't safe. So like if I can just make this safety net for him, right? So then it's just very isolating because people aren't going through the same things that you are. People don't understand the world of OT and navigating kids with disabilities or invisible disability. You know, people don't understand that world. And so, you know, you just a little more stressed. Like I could see things coming a mile away. I would remember thinking, oh, we've been invited to a birthday party, which had become rare. Like early on we were invited, but like I would say kindergarten to even now, it's rare. And when we are invited, it's like the most exciting thing on planet Earth for him. But I can see things coming a mile away. So instead of like relaxing at a birthday party, I would be like,
Sure,
I
tensing
couldn't
up.
even breathe, right? Like, and I couldn't even like enjoy. And I'm like, how silly is this? Like, it's taken me till like the past year to go, like, actually, and even now, like with that other situation that Jamie and I know about, I had like, I'm finally feeling like I'm letting go and just going, I actually just don't give a crap.
You
Like,
need to swear more often and quite
She never
violently.
will. She never will. I do
Violently.
enough for her.
it's rare. It's super rare.
I can
You're like,
send over suggestions if you like.
it's like the first time I ever heard my mom say a bad word, I was like, what was that? Like I never heard. I mean, Dad,
I don't know if you know what? I think I could go back to like 2 years ago when my dad said his first like curse word, and I remember being like, what are you doing?
Embrace it.
Yeah.
I
You
know.
know,
I just, yeah, you have to get to a place where you don't care. And I'm still on my journey. So like, I would love to say I don't care about any of it, but I do. But
yeah.
I'm working progress, but I don't want my kid to be where I am at 40 years old and still feeling like,
You've got to get
I want him to work through it
you've got to
now.
get a balance in your life. He needs a balance in his life,
Right.
which is difficult to change on a yearly basis. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, Lindsay, I am so grateful for you sharing with us and taking time to tell us about your story. And I'm certain that it is going to resonate with listeners, that they can hear it. They could possibly going through the same struggle. They could possibly, on any of, or the same challenges or navigating the different, hard paths. And so we're going to share, if that's okay with you, we'll share some contact information so people want to reach out to you to hear
Yeah.
about how you did that or whatever it is. If there's any, anything you can share with us, any resource you had, we'll have you share that with us and we'll put those in the show notes. And just so grateful. I want to end with, I was at a thing this week and I've heard this said many, many times before, but it was like, listen, do you the best that you can because everyone else is taken. There's no one else like you, right? There's no one else like you. So be you, do the best that you can because everyone else is taken and you don't have to be somebody else. And I think that that's like so true, but it's hard to get there. It's hard to get to where you can be yourself. And especially today where we're at, but I think your advice that you would give to yourself, your advice that you'd give to other families, I think that we need to talk a little bit more about you creating this support group because there's a need for there. So I've got some ideas that I'll share with you offline about
Yes.
that. But I think it's just incredible to have you share your story and how it's impacted the world. And we're grateful to have you as a
You
guest.
also get a sense of your positive energy, your beauty's coming through. I can see it in your eyes.
Thank you.
There's a serenity there, but it's very positive. It's delightful meeting you.
Thank you. I so
Thanks,
appreciate it. Thanks for
Lindsay. I
having me.
appreciate you. And we can't wait to share your story. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank
As we
you.
say, get the hell out of here.
I know, Dad. How
Thank
about
you
you don't
for
have to
sharing
go
your daughter
home,
with me too. I
but
want
you
to tell
can't
you
stay
that.
here.
She is amazing and I love her.
Thank you,
Thank
Lindsay.
thank
All
you.
right,
Bye-bye. Enjoy.
bye.
Bye.
Bye. Wow. So cool. I mean,
It,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
you have to get to a point. You just say, we recording now? We're not recording.
Yeah, we're recording.
Just say, I don't give a shit. You get to the point. No, accept who you, because the bullies, as you get older to my age, you're going to get bullies in my age group as well. But you get to the point, you say, try to insult me. So what?
Yeah. It's true how you were saying it's such a reflection of who they are. It's like there's an insecurity there with them or something like that. And listen, I know not everybody likes me. And they don't, and like, as I for a long
Who
time
wants
needed
that?
that. Yeah, but I for a long time needed like that acceptance piece where I needed everyone to like,
Hold on. Do you like everybody?
no.
Okay. The point is, we've lost the connectivity between us, ourselves, our universe. We're all people. They try to make you separate. That cannot happen. But in your mind, you can let that happen. You can create the positivity. It takes sometimes maturity, some time. But the point is, not building a shell around you. You're just saying, I have this issue. What's the problem with you? And all those bullies have their own Achilles heels. It's easy to get, not to insult, not to hurt them. But the point is, I'm like this, so I can't change that. What's your issue?
But I think that like, we reinforce that exclusivity, and I don't think that's a word throughout our lives, right? Like but that's part of life. You run for office or like you run for student council, you don't get it. You try to be in a sorority, you don't get the ones that you want. You try, like I think that you have to get comfortable in realizing that there's going to be rejection. There's going to be people who don't want to be your friend, and that's going to happen. And it's hard enough to navigate that as a person. And then when you have to navigate it as a parent for your child, oh,
My God, history is filled with aspects of people that have continually failed time and time and time again, but they got up, they kept doing what they're doing, they persevered. Whether you're a minor success, a major success, just keep getting up. Don't get rejection is part of acceptance.
well, and I think that failure piece, and whether it's like a relationship that fails or a friendship that fails, it all just makes you stronger for the next piece. Listen, obviously, I mean, obviously I'm married now, but I had maybe one or two boyfriends before that, and there was heartbreak, and it sucked. It was like the worst thing in the world, and it sucks. And
Yeah, you made them feel terrible when you left them.
No, I actually remember, Dad, and I don't know if I ever told you this. I remember there was one time that I don't remember who, this sounds horrible, but it was in high school. I had gone through a really bad breakup, and I remember being on the couch just hysterical crying, and Mom wasn't there. And not that you weren't always there for me as well too, but you happened to be the one that was there, and you just came and sat with me as I just cried. And I think it was kind of like I remember that moment. And that happens, right? And I think it's hard enough as a person, probably really hard I know now it's really hard as a parent, maybe even harder as a grandparent. But I just loved how she said, listen, you're going to get those dents and you got to figure out how to navigate those. And you're not alone. That's the thing, is I feel like so many people feel like they're the only one this is happening to. But it's not.
That's why the support is so important. And as someone who's had the experience, nothing is all peaches and cream. It's all part of the same process. You don't grow because you're comfortable. You grow because you have to bust out of where you are.
Well, I think that was a pretty successful What's Your Story Unfiltered. We decided unfiltered, unsanitized. What do you think? Which one are we going with?
Unfiltered and unsanitized.
All right, there we go. We'll do both. Love you.
You're not going to cut out the last part where I said, get the hell out of here, are you?
No, it's unfiltered and unsanitized. We're keeping that
that's
in.
what it means.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. We're not editing this at all. Like it's not being real.
I got to toughen that girl up, though. She's just too nice.
She is so nice. Like she is just so kind and so nice. And it's funny because like we could not be more different. Like we are day and night from just so many different things, but I just absolutely adore her. And I just think that, she is just an amazing human. And I just think that right there is an example of how we may not have, the same religious beliefs. We not have the same political beliefs. We not have, the same challenges, but yet we are connected in knowing that we're both humans. And just,
I think the Zoom concept is so valuable. If she could set up a support group, even once a month, I think she's ideally positioned to discuss that, get the kids on air. It would make them kind of feel like little media stars. All that stuff's important because today you can be your own movie star.
I know. I'm going to talk to her.
Look at me.
Yeah, you are. There you go. Love you, Dad.
I'm going off my 2.5-mile walk because my goal is to live. I'm putting this on air now. 105, or when flying cars are available.
They're available now.
They are? Well, when I can afford them. I am on a fixed income. Talk to Willie.
Oh my goodness. Until next time, thanks for joining us on What's Your Story?
I'll be
Unfiltered and unsanitized.
See you later. Bye-bye. Hey, thank you for tuning into today's What's Your Story podcast.
To learn more or share your story, go to jamiemarco.com. That's www.jaimemarco.com. And we will see you next time.